Hi there, I'm Scott from Sharky's Floral and Greenhouses, and today we're going to go back to the basics and talk about watering again. Now, if you haven't watched our first watering video, I encourage you to go to our Facebook page and go into the video section and watch that first video. But we wanted to do basically an addendum to that video because we get so many questions on how to water. So that's what I want to address today, is the actual meat and potatoes of how to water. So we get a lot of questions of, Scott, do I lift up the foliage and do I water down here? What happens if I get water on the leaves? And honestly, that's it's kind of majoring in the minors. It really doesn't matter when we're talking outside plants and flowers, okay? I know I'm going to have some of you say, well, actually, African violets, you don't want to get water on the leaves, and I understand that. We're not talking about that. We're talking about this stuff here. So your outdoor plants and flowers, how do we water them specifically? So, honestly, it doesn't matter, okay? What's important is the amount. I have a lot of flowers that I have to water every morning in the greenhouses, and it takes me 4 to 5 hours every morning. I'm not really careful about it, okay? So I don't know if I just ruined your thought about it, but when we're going through and watering, I have a watering hose with a nozzle that makes a spray pattern. I'm not that careful, okay? I'm not taking 2,000 or 3,000 hanging baskets and making sure that I'm right exactly on center, or I'm not that careful about it. So you don't need to be either. The point is the amount. That's the important part. And going back to what I preach about a lot is lifting that hanging basket or lifting that container and figuring out how much water content is in there. Is that soil well saturated? This hanging basket of caliber hose is very light, okay? So I want to give it a good drink. I'm not real careful if it's getting water up here on the flowers. I'm just going to go ahead and water it and lift it and make sure that I have the right amount. Now, going back to, we don't want the water pouring out the bottom. That's right about there, because I could feel it getting heavy. There's just a little bit of drip coming through. You can see that this was dry. Okay, so now it's coming out. I'm going to have to come back and give it another good drink about in a half an hour. This hanging basket was very dry. So what it's doing right now is that soil is almost shedding off the water. So yes, it's coming out the bottom. Typically, I don't want that when I'm watering. So I'm going to have to come back through, and it's coming out because it was so dry. But the foliage was still looking pretty good. Again, so the important part is the amount of water. So when we're watering, say if you have a watering can, what happens if I get water here? It might shed off. Can you lift up the flowers, the foliage, and get in here in water? Yeah, absolutely you can if you want to. But do you have to be really careful? No, not necessarily. If you have hard water, you might see some spots on the leaves, the calcium deposits. So that's somewhere where you might want to be careful, but does it hurt the plant? No, it does not. But it might be kind of unsightly, so you might want to be a little more careful just in that sense that you don't have big calcium deposits. Certain plants will show it differently, so some it absolutely won't matter. Some plants that we found will show that calcium. Now, going to the fertilizer. That Fertilizer Friday, okay, it comes along, it's Fertilizer Friday, and I'm going to fertilize my plant. I get this question a lot too of, well, do I have to be careful with the fertilizer, or should I try to get down in the soil? You can try to make sure that you're getting down to the soil, but again, it's not something that you have to be real careful about. This has fertilizer in it. If it gets on the leaves, if it gets on the flowers, usually it really doesn't matter. Again, the point is we want to make sure that this is getting the proper amount of water for the day. So I hope that clears up some of the questions that we get on the how-to. The point is the amount of water. We want that totally saturated but not running out the bottom. I can come back in here. He's going to need just another little drink and maybe a half an hour to an hour to get this. It's not looking bad, but I could tell it was dry. And I could tell it was dry because I lifted it. Okay, I can go through my hanging baskets and lift them to see if they're dry. So hopefully that clears up that question. The amount of water is really what's important. Have a great day. Thanks.